Hello there. I'm continuing my exploration of the wines of Weingut Robert Weil, and I have here a bottle of 2021 Kiedricher Turmberg Trocken Riesling. So the estate produces entirely Riesling, so the fact the Riesling shouldn't be a surprise to us. The Kiedricher Turmberg is a vineyard that is classified as an Erste Lage, so first growth. One of the three principal vineyards owned by the estate in the town of Kiedricher, where they're based. This particular vineyard is to the north of the town and slightly to the north of their Grosse Lage, their top vineyard, the Gräfenberg. Evidently in 1971, when the German wine laws were implemented, this vineyard lost its designation. It was rolled into a bigger vineyard, but in 2005 Weingut Robert Weil successfully applied to have its designation rejuvenated, re-established, and so now it's entitled to its own name. It's a steep site with quite free draining broken slate soils, broken rock, and quite picturesquely, there's the remains of a medieval castle. There, medieval. It's the keep of a castle dating back to 1160. So whether that's medieval or not, I'm not sure. In one corner of the vineyard. So the soils being free draining means that it tends to have what they refer to as a gossamer minerality. It's an elegant wine rather than a wine of power. 2021 also quite a sort of an elegant, delicate vintage, one that will age well and will put on a bit of weight in bottle rather than being particularly powerful from the get-go. It was quite an overcast, wet year for most of the year, and they had to work really quite hard in the vineyards to keep the canopy open by leaf thinning, that sort of thing, so that airflows could get through and stop rot from taking hold. They cut yields back by bunch thinning and by green harvesting, by dropping crop, to ensure that the fruit they had could ripen properly. And they were rewarded by quite a warm, dry September, which enabled the fruit to ripen properly. The approach that the estate has is very typically, they were one of the pioneers in the Rheingau of sustainable viticulture, so largely organic. But they will use green cover crops between the rows. They don't use herbicides, they don't use fertiliser, they don't use synthetic herbicides or fertilisers. Everything is hand-picked. It's a steep vineyard, it's not really possible to machine harvest it, but so hand-picking goes on, and hand-picking will go on selecting in trees, so the grapes will be picked at whatever degree of ripeness is required, and they will make sort of up to 17 different passes through their vineyards in a year to pick right the way through up to the Trockenbeerenauslese, to select Botrytis for those very sweet wines. This is a dry wine, as is denoted by the fact there's Trocken there. So, and as I say, hand-picked. In the winery, they will ferment the dry wines that they make in large oak foudre, so they ferment and age in those, whereas sweet wines will be fermented and aged in stainless steel. They believe that the oak gives a bit more richness and roundness there. Fermentation goes on wherever possible with the indigenous yeasts that come into the winery on the fruit or are already present in the winery when the fruit comes in. So there's no addition of yeast there. Everything in the winery goes on very much, they're trying to use gravity wherever possible to move must and wine around, and they're really trying not to overwork and to be as hands-off as possible with these wines. So let's have a look at the wine we have in the glass then, shall we? It has a it's a medium greenish yellow there. There's a relative intensity to the colour, but you can't really call it dark. The aromas are aromas are very elegant and lifted. More so than the Klosterberg that we've tried just previously. This has more sort of lifted perfume. It's more floral. There are lime flower notes. There's less of the richer honeysuckle sort of side of things. There's an apple note. There are citric notes there. So let's have a taste. On the palate, that is indeed precise and elegant. By comparison to the Klosterberg, this is a more focused wine. And there's a mineral freshness, there's a good crispness. The alcohol's 13% according to the label, but it's not seeming fat. I mean, the wine does open up and there's a bit of weight later, but initially you've got that sort of really quite focused. I mean, there are limey touches typical of Riesling, but it's actually more appley, and then there's a weight to the mid palate, which is almost creamy. So I'm assuming there's a bit of lees aging has gone on there. There's a roundness and a richness, but this is fine, elegant, refined, and I would suggest probably better approached in 4 or 5 years when the fruit will have had time to fill out, and you might start to get some sort of honeyed notes. You might start to see a little more stone fruit sort of character coming out of the wines. There's a lovely long flavour. I mean, the acidity is keeping it good and fresh, and that sort of mineral, slightly sort of flinty, slaty notes at the end are lasting really well. Yeah, a delicious wine. So that, as I say, was Kiedricher Turmberg Riesling Trocken from 2021 from Weingut Robert Weil. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been great to be able to share the wine with you. I hope you'll join us again, and I hope you'll like and follow our channel. But yes, do join us again. Bye now.